Welcome to the Scrappy Entrepreneur podcast, the show that brings you practical, informative tips from the trenches to help you thrive and prosper as an entrepreneur. Whether you're just beginning your journey or working to grow your existing business, this show is for you. And now, your host, the original Scrappy Entrepreneur, Paula Y.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Scrappy Entrepreneur Show. Today, I have my friend in who is a media coach. Patranya Bhoolsuwan is the founder of Patranya Media. She's a media consulting and communications strategy. Well, she runs a firm based in Las Vegas. She's a 3-time Emmy award-winning journalist, a TV host, and digital content creator. She's worked in major news markets across the country for the last 20 years. And I've asked her in today because I know a lot of you, you want to be in the news. You want to promote yourself. You want to gain awareness for your companies. And we all know how important it is. And Patranya is actually a media coach for entrepreneurs and business owners to help them get ready for interviews. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paula. It's so great to be here.
So let's start off. Tell my listeners a little bit about your background.
So I actually worked in TV news for over 20 years. So
wow.
Yeah, so I've been in the business doing everything. I started as an intern, and I became a production assistant. Then I became a writer, producer, and then I worked my way up to be an on-camera reporter and anchor. So, just kind of worked my way up and worked all over the country, as you said. I started actually in San Francisco, where I went to college, and then I was an intern there. And then once I got my first on-air job in a small town, Redding, California, and then I worked my way up from there. And then I worked, in D.C., in Seattle, Reno, and Vegas as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest market you were in?
I was in, I guess the biggest one is Washington, San Francisco. San Francisco, I think, is bigger than Washington. I actually started there, and I thought I was going to end up in San Francisco at one point, but, I fell in love with Las Vegas, and now we're back.
Wow. So you actually worked here in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But so why did you leave news? I mean, it's so glamorous.
You think it is glamorous, right? But, behind the scene, you really kind of see the grind that people put into it, the hours you work. I was a morning news reporter and anchor for many years, and I get up at 2:30 in the morning to go into work, and the news starts at 4:30 in the morning,
Wow.
So that's definitely not the glamorous side of news. And then you end up covering a lot of stories that aren't so glamorous, a lot of bad news, like murders and fires and crimes. And then I think after a while, you're just kind of done with that. I want to tell good stories. I did get a chance to tell a lot of good, positive stories about the community, and I really want to do more of that. And that's part of the reason I started my own media consulting firm, is to tell more positive stories in our community, and also to be a media coach to teach entrepreneurs how to tell their own positive stories as well.
Right. That's so funny that you say that, because I left news for the same thing, is that I was always chasing the negative.
Right.
And I love to be positive, and I love to tell positive stories, which is why I went into PR as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just get tired of that.
It's a burnout, right? It's normal. And but I did it for so many years. I was there for 20 years. I loved it. I think I love the aspect of telling stories, and I'm so glad that I can still do it as part of my work now.
Cool. So how long have you been an entrepreneur?
Actually, less than a year. And I never thought that I was going to be a business owner, an entrepreneur. It's just something totally kind of out of my realm. But I felt like when I was working towards the end of my news career, I felt like I have the skills that I can do this in a different way, and then I was able to incorporate it into my consulting firm and what I do for my clients. So it's been really, really fun.
Was it scary to go out on your own?
It's probably one of the scariest things,
Really?
and people always say, like, God, you're so brave to just go in something you've never done. But I guess I've always kind of been that person. I moved from Thailand to America when I was 18, and just by myself. I didn't know anybody. I just wanted to be a reporter, and that's all I know.
Wow.
And people's like, that should be scary. But then I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I just did it. And I think it was the same thing now. Like, I knew I wanted to change. I wanted to do something positive. I want to have the freedom to tell my own stories. And so I just pushed forth.
So you just gave your notice and then opened up the shingle?
I did. And
Wow.
I moved from Seattle, where my last news market, back here to Las Vegas. One of the reasons is because I know I have a good network here. I lived here for 5 years, and I was a reporter and anchor in Las Vegas at one point. So I made a lot of contacts. I met you when I was working in Las Vegas at the time. So I knew that I had the support network that I needed to start a business, and here I am.
Wow. What was the hardest part? Was it like getting all the licensing or?
Yeah, I think, because I've never done anything like this before, that technical part, just setting up the business. But I'm glad that I have good friends who are attorneys, who are business owners, who I found mentors who can help me start this.
Good.
So I think that's kind of the key. If you kind of want to make that jump to a completely different career, is find people who are already doing it or who have, the experience, and ask for help. And one of the biggest prizes I had was how many people were willing to help me and jump in and just offer their advice.
Yeah. So you're a media coach. So tell us what that is.
Well, I feel like a lot of people are afraid of the media for many, many reasons. They aren't sure. They say they want to be on TV or they want exposure, but then they're not sure what the motive is when a reporter approaches them for a story, or if they want to approach a news station to promote something. So I feel like I wanted to be that person to kind of, open the blinds, and just kind of let them know, what is this business all about? What are reporters looking for? What's a news operation looking for? And how can you best promote yourself and get the attention of the media in the most positive way to promote your business or your brand?
So before we get into the actual coaching techniques, and I know you're going to give us all the secrets for the
all the
listeners,
secrets.
Tell us about, as a news reporter, did you have PR people pitching you?
All the time.
All the time, right?
I think that's probably how I met you.
Oh, yeah, probably. I was knocking on your door. But tell our listeners what makes a good news story, because, that's so important. I work with a lot of clients who say, I want to get my story in the news, but it isn't a good story. So, a lot of PR people will pitch bad stories. I try not to do that. I try to coach the client on helping them make a good story. But from your point of view, tell us what makes a good story.
Well, first of all, they have to understand what the reporters are looking for, right? So a good story is one that is newsworthy. I think that's the one key word that I want to tell people is the story you're pitching, newsworthy. And newsworthy meaning, is it valuable? Is it offering some kind of good information for the community or of value? Because if it doesn't benefit anyone except themselves, then it's really not a story.
Right.
So you kind of find that peg of why it's newsworthy, why it should be on right now, because news is all about urgency, like what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow. They don't care about what happened yesterday. So how can you promote your story so that it's newsworthy, it's urgent, it's timely? It also has to be timely and be some kind of value for people out there listening or watching the news.
Right. I used to tell my clients, you need to buy an ad if it wasn't newsy.
Right. There's a difference. People confuse themselves thinking it's a news story and an advertisement, the same thing. And reporters aren't meant to go out and promote anyone. We're supposed to be journalists. We're supposed to tell a fair and balanced news story. But as a PR professional, you're trained in a way to see how to promote a story so that it also becomes newsworthy and also promote your client in a positive way.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the worst PR pitch you ever got?
Something that's just out of touch with what's happening in the world, and kind of not, if it's something that's happening in April, they're promoting something for Christmas orient. You got to think about what's happening in the world, and you can't just say, okay, that I'm so great and this is why you should like us, but there's no value to anybody else, and not targeting the right, the right people in the news business. Like if you're reaching out to a political reporter for a business story, So you got to think about who you're targeting and who you're reaching out to.
Right. And then the different mediums too, right? I mean, as a TV reporter, I always had to think about the visuals of the story. Can I provide a visual to the story?
There are people who put out a PR pitch for a new business opening, but they're not willing, the owner of the business is not willing to do an interview or not willing to get a reporter to come inside a new restaurant that's opening. Like, what's the point of promoting something if you're not offering the reporter something visually to work with?
Right. So who are your clients?
So I work with a good variety. I work with nonprofits. I work with small businesses. I work with restaurants. I work with realtors. I work with just trying to think who I'm working with, day traders who want to start a YouTube channel. You know what I mean? So just a variety of people who want to just build their brand, and you can be anybody. And I feel like anyone can really benefit from what I have to say.
So as a media coach, what are the skills that you're teaching?
Basically, it's communications, right? So my logo is communicate, confidence, conquer. So what I want to teach is how to be the best communicator you can be, because if you can communicate effectively, you become more confident, and then you go out and conquer your dream. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. So the basic skills of communications, things that you don't think about that can really kind of make or break that deal, right? If you're a communicator, you know how to kind of put out your brand, your message effectively. And once you know that you're doing it effectively, you become more confident in selling whatever you want to sell out there.
So where do you start?
I think it's just...
if I came to you and said, hey, I want to hire you as my media coach, do we begin with role playing and then you help me figure out what I'm lacking? Or do we start learning how to bridge or my appearance? Do you work on all of that with me?
I think it's a combination. I think the first thing I look for is to really understand what you're trying to sell, because I think a lot of people don't even really know what they stand for or what message they want to put out there or what their brand is. So I help them kind of refine and just kind of, refocus. What do you really want me for? What do you want to put out there? What's the message you want to get out to your customers or patrons or guests, right? And once we get that message, then I can really work with you in terms of communicating or drafting out that message, whether it be through social media, whether it be through press releases or TV interviews. And then I work with, if you feel like you're not confident about how you look, how you sound, then I'm that sounding board for them. I said, I'm going to look at you through a reporter's lens that I've done for a long time when I'm interviewing people. And then I see all those years, what are they doing right? What are they doing wrong in terms of getting that message across on TV?
Right. So how many sessions does it usually take?
I would suggest probably at least 4 or 5 sessions, but because I got to get to know you, we got to practice, we got to kind of like seeing you in action. So I think it will take, I usually sign on my clients, from 1 to 3 months so that they get to know me and get to work with me. But they can do as much as they want. If they feel they just kind of want to get a starter and then see if that works for them. So I never lock anyone into like long-term contracts. I know it's all about them. If they feel they can keep growing with me, then I'm glad to stay on.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you teach all of those? I watch during political season on the news. I think Hillary Clinton did it the best. Anytime they lodge a question at her,
right.
She is so good at answering the question by saying, I'm so glad you asked that.
Yeah.
But what your viewers really want to know is this. And then she'd move right into her message.
Yeah.
She would never even answer the reporter's question.
Right. She's been trained well.
Really well.
Yeah.
Like, do you do that kind of training?
Yeah. It's about, crisis negotiations sometimes, because a lot of times people run into issues when they don't want to answer, something, or they don't want to put something. Sometimes, a lot of times, if a reporter approaches you, it's for something that's not so good.
Right.
When you reach out to the reporter is when you want to promote something good. So you got to, a media coach can come out in that way to help you potentially prepare for something that's going to happen. You don't want anything bad to happen, but bad news gets out there, right? How do you deal with that? So I'm using my skills as a reporter. Like, I know what a reporter is going to ask most likely when a situation happens, so I can prepare them for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you help them on camera prepare? Do you actually put them on camera and run them through drills and let them watch back?
Oh, for sure. And people hate that.
Yeah.
People hate watching themselves on.
I know.
And I know a lot of people, especially realtors right now, what they want to do is really sell themselves, on social media, but they hate just the fact of putting a camera up to their face and just kind of recording themselves. A lot of people don't even get to that point because they're so scared, so I force them to watch themselves, to see the quirks, because sometimes you can't tell what you're doing. These little quirks you have, even I have them, little words that I use that I'm like, why do I use this word all the time?
Right.
So those are the things that you pick up when you watch yourselves on camera.
So can you give us a little bit about camera presence, how we can improve our presence on camera?
I think the key thing is, there are little tips. Like, one of the biggest things you can do is to look straight at the camera. You wouldn't imagine, so many people look down, look up, they start shifting around. I say the key thing you can do is just to breathe and look straight at the camera, because it's that connection. And I think when you build that connection with whoever you're watching, then that just create that immediate presence. So little things like that, how you shouldn't slouch back and sit a little bit more forward, so little tips like that you don't think about that will become second nature after training.
What about clothing? Like what do you recommend people wear on camera for clothing?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of tips, like being in the business for so many years, news stations hire consultants to come talk to us.
Really?
About what to wear. Because we don't know. I mean, a lot of people come into this business and we're as, inexperienced as anyone in terms of how to look good on camera, right? So they hire these consultants who've been trained to, watch the news, see what people think of it when they see you on the news. So, one of the biggest things I've learned is to really dress for the occasion. Like a lot of people feel like, oh, I have to be in a suit and tie for every occasion. But if you're interviewing in the middle of the soccer field, you're not going to be in a suit and tie. So one of the biggest things is to dress appropriately, to wear things that aren't going to be distracting. Distracting is key. A lot of people, you want to hear people's message and you don't want to be distracted by a huge earring or really flashy clothing,
Right.
So find things that can be still simple, professional, and appropriate.
So is it, if you represented a doctor, would they have to be in a white lab coat, or do you want them to be more, what do you think?
I think it depends on the situation. If they're in their office and the subject is about, COVID-19 or something, so to build that credibility, I think it's great to have a doctor's coat on, so if you have the doctor's coat, I always say, hey, can you put that on? If not, then, just look professional and be in your atmosphere.
Have you ever had a client show up that didn't look so great?
Yeah, but I mean,
you're like, can you comb your hair?
Oh yeah. Like I've interviewed as a reporter, you've come up to people like, are you sure you want to, go on? Like, but the key thing is I rather focus on people's message. And if they get that out, clearly, and they're not too distracted about what they're wearing or they close their hair, I think it's secondary. I think just being confident and knowing what you're talking about, I think that's much more important than how you look.
What if you're in a live interview and you mess up? What do?
You just have to keep going. That's what I tell people. You can't stop. It's live, so just be sure, just take a breath before you start talking because it's live. They can't take it back. Be aware that it's live and don't swear, so kind of be conscious and be focused because people get so nervous. You know what I mean? They just like, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm just keep going. Don't stop. I think one of the key things is I always tell people if they've never been on an interview before and they're just talking to me, say, just think of me as just talking to me. Ignore the camera that's behind me. Mm-hmm. Just talk as if we're just in a conversation. So,
right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So have you ever had a client that really messed up on camera?
Well, I think one of the worst things that a client can do or anyone can do on camera is to come and have this a speech memorized. They want to say what they want to say, and it comes out so unnatural, and they keep stopping because it's not coming out the way that they want to, and that's one of the worst things. Even as a reporter, I'm like, can you just talk to me normally?
Right.
Don't try to memorize like a speech, and maybe whoever's been training them say, oh, memorize this. So go say this. But a lot of times it's not what the reporter's even asking, Right. So I think one of the key things is just to listen to what the reporter, whoever's asking you, and make sure you're answering that question.
That's really good advice. Yeah. To authentically listen to the reporter and then just answer in a really authentic, organic way, rather than with a canned speech. Or if you're going to do a canned speech, then send in a statement.
Right.
Right?
Right. Why do you even come on camera?
Right.
So, yeah.
Are there any things that we should think about for camera presence in studio as opposed to out of studio?
I think it's just the environment, and I think you just have, it's good to know if you're going to be sitting in a studio where they're going to see your whole body, because a lot of time people think, oh, I'll just wear a good top, but who cares what's on the bottom? But then you go sit in the studio, you realize the camera angle's taken everything. So, just so be aware of that. When you're outside, be aware that it can be windy, it can be sunny, it can be raining. So definitely be prepared, dress appropriately, and just be aware of your environment.
That's good.
Yeah.
What about sound bites? How do you teach sound bites?
And that's one thing that I try not to teach, is for people not to speak in sound bites. I think people need to speak as naturally as possible. And because if you try to speak in sound bites, you try to come up with a prepackaged statement, right? So and the sound bite is what me, reporters, editors, photographers, we end up editing it into a sound bite. But when you're speaking as someone I'm being interviewed, I say speak naturally. I create the sound bite. I'm the reporter.
Okay.
Yeah.
And reporters, they have questions in the minds of, are they trying to get a certain soundbite out of you by the questions that they ask?
Oh, definitely. And that's one thing I train my clients is that, most news people, they come in with, and I think this is just human nature, you preconceived notion of what a story is going to be, right? But a lot of times you come in and you talk to someone, you realize that's not even the story. But you got to think that, okay, this is what reporters probably going to ask. That's why as a PR person or as a consultant, I train them. It's like, oh, these are probably the questions they're going to be asking you. So this is how you prepare for it. Because I think I put myself in a reporter's shoe. So they definitely have kind of a narrative that maybe in their minds. So your goal is to put your message out there so it speaks your message and not anybody else's.
That's good.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about how we tailor a message for a particular brand?
So I think yes. And I think that's what, it goes back to focusing on what your brand is and understanding what you're trying to sell. Like if it's a doctor, for example, their main goal is to build credibility as a health professional, right, in this community. So I was like, okay, what is on your social media right now? Are you putting it out there that you're an expert on this particular topic? If you're not putting it out there, then nobody knows. You know what I mean? It's just about amplifying your message and putting it out there. And when you speak about it, research, be knowledgeable about what they're going to be asking you. Even though you know the information, if you go in unprepared, you're going to seem unprepared. Even if you're the smartest doctor in the world, if you're not prepared on how the reporter is going to be approaching this or what kind of questions they're going to ask you. And that's where I come in to help them prepare for something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm really interested right now in personal branding with, doctors, corporate CEOs, realtors, really building out their personal brand, really figuring out what they want to be known for, what they're passionate about, and going out to the world with that. Right. So is that who you're working with? Working with people who really want to elevate their personal brand, be in the media, be on social media, being put out that personal brand.
I think that's what all my clients are looking for.
That's awesome.
They want to create that media exposure. But who are they creating it for? It's for their brand. But a lot of times they're not sure what their brand is. If they're putting out what they really want to put out, maybe I help them see their story. I'm like, this is really more interesting. You think this is your story, which is part of your story, but why don't accentuate this? That makes you more unique and makes you stand out from the rest of the people in your field.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you help them think through the types of media? You do have a TV background, but are you saying, okay, this is where we're going to go out in print. This is where we're going to go out online, TV. I mean, there's such a wide variety of TV right now, right?
Yeah. And I think that's what we have to tell our clients is that when you're going on a TV interview, it's not just about TV anymore. It's a multimedia business, right? Like right now I'm doing a podcast, but you're putting this on social media, you're putting this on your website, you know what I mean? So be prepared to go on Facebook, to be on TV, to be on, any kind of, so it's all mixed in now because of our cell phones and because of, the technology now. So be ready for anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you able to place them on some, I guess, not so traditional channels? I mean, there's all the news channels, but what else kind of avenues are you looking at?
I think digital is big. People think, oh, I got to be on TV. But if you go on a website now, or even if you go to a TV station, but be on their website or a digital channel, a lot of people have more access to that. You think, oh, not as many people are watching traditional TV anymore. Right. They're listening to podcasts. They're watching their shows on YouTube or, so there are many more channels to look out for now. And I think people don't really understand. So a lot of people think, oh, I have to be on a TV commercial to get people's attention. But most people aren't watching regular TVs.
Right.
Yeah.
How do we keep up on all of the new avenues? Like I saw Fox here, the affiliate is doing a podcast. I saw that, like you said, all of the TV stations now have web content as well. How does a business owner and entrepreneur find those?
It's research. Like, you just got to understand the community you live in. You know, not everyone has access, but I think if you have someone who can help you, like a consultant or a coach or someone like that, we can help pinpoint where you should promote yourself. That is most maybe best for your brand, because some people might be good on TV, but other people might be better on a podcast, you know, and kind of see their strength. But yeah, you just got to know, do your research. Like, you got to know what's out there right now. It's not just radio. It's not just TV. There's so many other media channels.
So if I have a story and I'm an entrepreneur and I want to pitch it to the news, do I call the news desk? Do I call the reporter direct?
Yeah.
Do I call a producer? How do I do it?
Yeah, it's a maze, right?
All three?
People, yeah. Well, I know. I think you need to be specific. Like, for example, a restaurant's opening, you want them to come cover you, right? Typically, what people do if they have a PR firm, send a press release to the news desk or to the main newsroom. But a newsroom gets hundreds of press releases a day.
So you got to stand out.
How do you stand out? So my tip would be for this particular client, a restaurant, is I said, hey, there's a food and beverage reporter at the station. Did you know that? This person would probably be the person who would cover this kind of story. Why don't we specifically target him or her and customize that email? Don't just say, Dear Fox, Dear NBC, but Dear Reporter so-and-so, can we invite you to our opening coming up this day?
Right.
That's going to make a lot more impact, a lot more personal, and that reporter's going to appreciate the fact that you sought them out. You found out who they are, and most likely they're going to come cover your story.
So they appreciate that. They don't feel like they're being hounded, or people shouldn't be scared. I mean, they're
No.
looking for good stories.
You got to
right?
be, and that's the thing. Reporters need content. News stations need content. So you got to give the content. You have the content to give, but how do you craft that and personalize that content so it's appealing to reporters, so it's newsworthy, so it's urgent, so it's timely. So these are kind of skills that I can share with my clients.
Do they want exclusives nowadays? Is that even a thing anymore?
Well, and that's what's hard. You can get media in so many ways. You know what I mean? So more than exclusive, I think personal. How, or impactful more than exclusive. How does this impact the product that you're coming out with or your service? How is it so valuable to whoever's out there? And one of the things I tell them to do is find someone who's benefiting from your service right now and amplify their story. You know, put it in the press release that this is the family that's getting my service and they're doing amazing. You know,
Right.
and that, to me, a good reporter is always looking for a personal story, not just kind of a public ad. You know, so if you can provide me with personal stories like that of what you're doing in the community to help people, that's when you're going to get the news attention. Yeah.
What about these paid news segments nowadays?
Yeah, there's a lot out there.
Right?
And that's one avenue. I mean, I'm not going to diss them because that is definitely one way that businesses get exposure is to pay for a segment, which, you know, people who don't know, it looks like a news segment, but is really a paid segment. And it's one avenue to get out there, you know, but I think you can get free media coverage. You just have to craft it properly, you know?
Right.
So I think there is a way of doing that. You just have to be able to craft your message as a valid news story.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the outlook on news long term? I mean, I just feel like as a former reporter too, that, you know, I watch so many news channels where it just doesn't seem unbiased and fair anymore. It just seems, I worry about long term, the viability of news.
Yeah, like to me, it's just so hard, and it's such an interesting topic right now. Just listening on NPR, a story about how one news outlet is actually now allowing their reporters to go on these protest marches, where as a traditional journalist, you're not supposed to do that, right? You're not supposed to show any kind of opinions and biases, but the world is changing, you know, things are changing. I think as long as we need journalism, I'm even though I'm not a full-time journalist anymore, I really respect that craft, but I think it's all about giving people all sides. You know, I mean, you're not supposed to show one side, give them all sides, all kinds of
Right.
information, and then we make our decisions on
Right.
what we believe, right? So as a journalist, you're supposed to do that. Give the facts and then let us decide to make opinions on things.
But I feel like they're not doing that. I feel like they're really being opinionated and biased in their news coverage.
I think there are outlets that are not. I think all we all have biases, right? We're supposed to be fair.
We're human.
We're human, yeah. And I think my advice to people, especially, I teach at UNLV broadcasting too, and I always tell my students, get your information from a variety of sources as much as you can. Watch Fox, watch NBC, watch CNN. So watch it so that you're not just getting it from one source. Get it from as many sources as possible. Listen for people with different opinions and then make your own.
Yeah,
I think that's the best advice.
Are the kids coming up through school, are they wanting to be reporters nowadays?
Yeah, well, yeah, I still get that, which I think it's great. I think we need great journalists out there. Whether it be in any fields, but I think we're all storytellers now, right? You hear that term, citizen journalists. Yeah. We all have cell phones. We all can be citizen journalists as long as we do it. What do you say? As long as we do it responsibly, you know. And I think that is key.
Yeah. In fact, I remember as a PR person, I was always telling my clients that be really, really careful when you're presenting or when you're doing interviews to be very cognizant of the mics that might still be on.
Oh, yeah. Even reporters have to be careful. A lot of times you come out and say something, it's like, oops, the mic is still on.
Right. Yeah. And I, as a reporter, might even have taken my recorder up and set it on the chair next to it, to the subjects, because I was looking for more information. So nowadays you do have to be really careful. I tell my kids, I tell everybody this, that you can no longer do anything without it being recorded.
Nope. And the other thing is, people, if a reporter is interviewing you, for example, somebody else might be doing a Facebook Live, so they say, oh, we're just taping this, but they might be doing and this might be live out there, so you never know who's filming, if it's live. You can't take things back. It's like you said, like if it's online, it's out there forever.
Right.
And now a lot of videos and stuff you do online, it could stay out there for a very long time.
Right. Yeah. And I see, I think that's what's happening right now with some of the police, is that they're doing stuff and people are getting it on camera and there's just no hiding from it.
No,
so.
I mean, it's, I think it's a good thing, and then now if you look at it that way, like people can always film, but you always have to be careful too. What you say, what you do, it can get on camera at any minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever deal with crisis clients and help coach them through a bad crisis?
Yeah, and I think at any time, you always have to be prepared. Even if you're not dealing with crisis right now, I feel like there's always a potential for something, especially with social media, things people put out there. You never know if someone has a beef against you and decides to put something out there. So you always have to be ready and always do it consciously, not just be rash about it and put something out there to say, okay. So yeah, I think you always have to be prepared. Like people always think, oh, I'm not dealing with anything bad or negative. You just never know. So you always have to be ready.
How do you become ready?
I think just kind of knowing what to expect, and I give them that scenario that they could be dealing with and how to deal with it. I always say one of the worst things people can do is say no comment. I'm not going to talk to the media.
Right.
It's the worst thing. At least give them, say, hey, we're working on it. We're going to give you more information when we have more to offer. Give them something. So that it doesn't look like you're hiding something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who does it really well? Like who in the news media, a company, a subject, who do you look up to in regards to how they handle themselves on the media?
Oh gosh. I don't know if I have any names right now, but I feel like,
I really, like I said, I really love how Hillary Clinton was trained. Whoever did her training was amazing.
Yeah, but then there are people, obviously, I'm sure, that don't like her, say that she's horrible, right?
Right.
So a lot of times it's very subjective as well on what you think about people. So I think if you are confident, you know your stuff, and you're prepared for situations, then I think you'll be fine, and I think like you go into any situation, if somebody asks you to do an interview, make sure you just research, you really prepare.
Yes.
I mean, preparation is key. When I was a reporter, if I'm going to go in a story, I always come back looking better when I'm prepared for it.
Right.
Sometimes you have to breaking news, you have to do what you can. But being prepared is really crucial.
Yeah, I even like preparing, looking at the reporter who's going to interview me and looking at the last couple stories that they did to understand their slant or where they go or how they interview. I think, looking at who's interviewing you is a good way to prepare too.
And it's the way of building that rapport and that connection, right? I always like to, find out about who I'm about to talk to, so that when I go in, I build that connection. And especially when it's like not a very comfortable interview, I know I have to get some information out of them. If I build that rapport, like, oh, I heard you have 2 kids or you have 2 cats, then I build that connection with them and they become a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How do you build a relationship with a reporter? Like if I'm on the outside, I'm scared to reach out to them, that they're going to think I'm bugging them. How has anyone built a relationship with you as a reporter? What do they do? Send you articles or?
Yeah, stay connected, in social media right now. You can always like follow them and make a comment on their post and say, hey, because you want to build that at a 2-way thing. You don't want to just like approach them when you have a story, when you have a client, right? You want to just say, hey, I'm your friend. I want to help you. And even if it's a bad story or something that you want to especially when something comes up crisis later, if you have a good relationship with that reporter, you can help them, put your client in the best possible light, you know? So I think that's really key to kind of stay in touch with them throughout the process, and not just when you need something from a reporter. Yeah.
Any other advice to business owners or entrepreneurs who are really looking to improve their awareness in the media?
Well, I think, obviously one thing, if they want to be more confident or better communicate, is to practice. If they wanted to be better on camera, do more videos, for their business and start talking on camera. Get a coach to help you if you need, but you just have to get out there and do it. Like anyone, like a reporter who's never done it before, you just have to go out there and do it, make your mistakes and learn from it and get better and better.
Yeah. So where can people find you?
So you can find me on my website. It's my name, www.patranya.com, or they can email me at Patranya, Patranya, at patranyamedia.com. And, but yeah.
Do you have social sites?
Yes. If you put my name, Patranya, it's a pretty uncommon name. So if you put in Patranya, you'll find me. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. And that's the other thing I tell my clients, a good tip is people are on social media. Put yourself out there, especially on LinkedIn, get people to know you. If you have a restaurant, something visual to sell, get on Instagram.
Yes.
So really understand social media. And that's one of the things I talk about them too, is how you can best amplify your message through social media.
That's good too.
Yeah.
So are you going to be doing any trainings on YouTube or any upcoming? Yeah.
Actually, on my Facebook page, my Patranya Media LLC, if you look and you follow me, every week I do Media Training Tips Tuesday.
Training Tips
Tuesday, I give one media training tip a week.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's completely free. You don't have to pay for it. It's on Facebook. So if you want to just follow me every week on my Facebook page, I give that for free.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
You're welcome. This is great. I've never done a podcast before. This is my very first
It
podcast.
is?
Yeah, so great practice. See, practice is everything.
Yeah, I'm trying to get her to do her own podcast so we can get media tips all the time.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thank you so much for listening today. And if we brought you any value, please rate, subscribe, and share our podcast. Also, please make sure to connect with us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next week, I'm your host, Paula Y.